It's baffled scholars for 2 millennia. It is a puzzle made of multi-dimensional elements, an enigma with roots that reach back to the dawning of time, perhaps before. Daniel explained part of it. Ezekiel and Isaiah had glimpses into it. John saw it all for the time of the end. That time is now. Join Derek and Sharon Gilbert on a journey that spans the course of history, from Eden to Mount Hermon, from Hermon to Babel, from Babel to Rome, from Rome to the cross, and from there to us. Biblical prophecy is coming true before your eyes, and to understand it, you must discern the times both then and now. It's time to unravel the threads of this all-encompassing prophetic paradox. It's time to unravel Revelation.
The Great Red Dragon. Welcome to Unraveling Revelation from Skywatch TV. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert, and boy, we had a whirlwind tour of the Day of the Lord, sort of a summation of everything we've been talking about for the last few weeks. That was last week, and it was episode 101. Now this is episode 102.
But
unbelievable.
It's amazing that we've gotten this far into it, and we're still only just beginning Revelation chapter 12.
Well, honestly, I think that tells you how much you can really get out of God's Word. It's really endless. You will always have more to study.
And this is one of the more interesting chapters for a number of reasons. It is obviously prophetic, but it is also historic. This is another one of those already but not yet fulfillments. And it was, been in the news a lot lately because of recent speculation about the blood moons, the red moons that we've seen in the sky here over the last 5 years or so. But as we look at these signs, I think we need to look at was it fulfilled in the past, and B, what is it pointing to in the future? What is this describing here?
Well, back up really quickly. At the end of Revelation 11, we had the seventh trumpet that sounded.
Right.
And there was rejoicing in heaven.
Yes. And the 24 elders who were saying, okay, now is the time. You have taken your great power. You have begun now to reign.
Yes.
And this is the time for basically the end of the rule of unrighteousness, those unrighteous entities, the gods, small g gods that we talked about last week.
Exactly.
God's judgment is coming.
We're about to see that midpoint and the revelation of the Antichrist. The book of Revelation is all about the unveiling of Christ. The revelation, that means unveiling, aposteia, not
apocalypsos, yeah.
Yeah, not apocalypto, that's the Mel Gibson. Apocalypsos, which means unveiling, pulling back a veil so that you can see the truth. Well, finally we get to see what God's plans are. He's revealing not everything, but enough that we can rejoice and know when we see the signs what is going on. We are about to dive into a point that is probably, if not exactly midway, then really close to midway. So during that final 7-year period of Daniel's 70-week prophecy.
Right, but like a lot of things in Revelation, things don't move necessarily in sequential order.
Not necessarily. Well, let's find out what Revelation is all about. Revelation 12.
Revelation 12, beginning at verse 1, "And a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a crown of 12 stars. She was pregnant and was crying out in birth pains and the agony of giving birth. And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns, and on his head 7 diadems. His tail swept down 1/3 of the stars of heaven and cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was about to give birth, so that when she bore her child, he might devour it. She gave birth to a male child, one who is to rule all the nations with a rod of iron." The actual Greek there says shepherd the nations. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
"But her child was caught up to God and to his throne, and the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God in which she is to be nourished for 1,260 days.
Okay, we're going to stop there for now. I think shepherd is a better translation because in Psalm 23 we see thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus has been our king, our shepherd all along, if you know him as your Lord and Savior. And if you don't, please, now is the time to accept him. Because as we're discovering, time is running out. And there will come a day when the door to salvation closes.
Mm-hmm. This sign in heaven, the woman clothed with the sun, the moon under her feet.
There's been so much speculation about that.
Yeah, there has been. And it is again, this is one of those already but not yet fulfillments. There was some speculation that this was about to be fulfilled. But I think it's a better interpretation to say that this was fulfilled at the birth of Jesus back in 3 BC.
Yes, and I think Dr. Michael Heiser does a really good job of supporting that argument.
Yes, that was based on the research of Dr. Ernest L. Martin and a book called The Star That Amazed the World.
Mm-hmm.
What Dr. Martin argued in his book was that this sign pointed to the Christmas star, the so-called Christmas star, and we've talked about this in the past. When the great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn came through on December 21st this past year, which is the winter solstice, not coincidentally, which is why I think there was so much interest in it among the people of the world.
And it was hailed by the world
as the Christmas star.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, it
No,
wasn't.
it wasn't.
No. The star that drew the wise men from the east was most likely the conjunction of the star Jupiter, the planet Jupiter, with the star Regulus, which is the brightest star in the constellation Leo, which of course is Leo the lion. So you got Regulus, which
means king.
Yeah, the king star, and Jupiter, the king planet, coming together in Jupiter, or in Leo, that is, not long after Jupiter had earlier come into conjunction with Venus.
Yes. Now,
So-
we are not saying that our Lord Jesus Christ is the product of Jupiter and Venus. These are signs that were interpreted by the Magi. Mm-hmm. They could see that the Regulus star, that was a king star, and they knew that a king was born because they also had read the prophecies of the Old Testament.
Yeah, and that was heralded the coming of a king. You've got the king star, the king planet.
Yes, and the star shall rise out of Jacob. They
Yes.
knew where to go.
Right. And the interesting thing, according to the conclusions of E.L. Martin and Mike Heiser following up on that work, was that the most likely birth date for Jesus was September 11th of 3 BC.
Because of the constellation Virgo,
Right.
who is clothed in the sun. Mm-hmm. So the sun was rising in Virgo.
Right. So rising in Virgo.
And the moon happened to be at her feet.
Right. So that's a sign that pointed to something that, so John is sort of date stamping what he's talking about here. And the dragon, before the woman who gave birth, this is a reference to Jesus, and he would rule the nations with a rod of iron. That's a reference back to the as you mentioned, the prophecy of Balaam in Numbers 24.
Yes.
The star rising out of Jacob.
Yes.
He was caught up to God, obviously. Jesus caught up to God and to his throne. Now, the other part of this that is really intriguing, the woman fleeing into the wilderness where she's to be nourished for 1,260 days.
That clearly is speaking about the tribulation period, because we get that language in the various prophecies about the tribulation period. That's 3.5 years.
Yeah. Not a coincidence that
Not
that number has been picked.
a coincidence at all.
One other thing to mention with this prophecy here in Revelation 12, the dragon before the woman trying to eat the child, that story is echoed in the mythology of the god Apollo. And Python, who was sent to chase after his mother because Hera was upset that she was about to give birth to these children of Zeus. And Python chased after Apollo. After he was born, he actually slew Python, and that became the site of Delphi, the oracle at Delphi,
Yes.
supposedly. But,
so the fallen realm have been telling fake news versions
Right.
of this for a long time.
Exactly. Now, when we went through the four horsemen of the apocalypse, and we made the case that the rider on the white horse, Apollo, was that rider because he wore a crown, but it was a diadem, not a diadem, it was a Stephanos, a crown of victory, which according to Greek religion was invented by Apollo.
You need some tea.
I do,
You need a little
clearly.
caffeine.
But that's the key difference here between Apollo and this dragon, is that the crowns, and kudos to the ESV translators for using the word diadems. What we need to understand is that the diadem was a crown of royalty as opposed to a crown of victory.
Yes. And this idea of the 7 heads and 10 horns, that idea goes way back. And in fact, it's reflected in this idea of the dragon pulling down a third of heaven with him, because Draco is a circumpolar constellation, which means it's always there, and it sort of wraps around. It looks as though, from the northern hemisphere anyway, it looks as though it wraps around the earth, like the Ouroboros.
Yeah.
And the idea of Leviathan, Tiamat, these imply within them a twisting serpent, a circling serpent. This idea of the Ouroboros, which is a snake eating its own tail.
Yeah. So this is an interesting depiction of what's going on in heaven, representing what is actually taking place in the cosmos. The question then, and maybe we should take a break and then address this on the other side, because Jesus is described as having seen Satan fall from heaven like lightning.
Yes.
The 7-headed red dragon. And we'll see later on in Revelation 12 that that's exactly who we're talking about here. John makes it explicit. Did that happen here, or did it happen later?
I think there's a very simple answer for that.
Okay, well, we'll address that when Unraveling Revelation continues.
Call now and take advantage of Skywatch TV's biggest giveaway of the summer. The Zeitgeist Summer Exclusive includes Dr. Thomas Horn's eye-opening new book, Zeitgeist 2025, Countdown to the Secret Destiny of America, The Lost Prophecies of Qumran, and the Return of Old Saturn's Reign, along with a never-before-released 6-part Zeitgeist 2025 companion DVD, the shocking full-length documentary, The Secret Destiny of America on DVD, the full-length movie, Belly of the Beast, the ancient mystery that holds the secret of Antichrist's resurrection and return, and the entire 6-disc Rise 2021 Defender Virtual Conference box set on DVD, a $245 value, now available for your donation of only $35 plus shipping and handling. In the new book, Zeitgeist 2025, you will learn hidden secrets and forgotten prophecies surrounding the year 2025, how the current U.S. government is tied to America's occult destiny, lost prophecies from Qumran, forecasting 2025 as the final age of man, how America's capital city is laid out to actuate arrival of Antichrist, and why historians and intelligence agencies foresee a totalitarian world government by 2025. You'll also receive the Zeitgeist Companion DVD. This 6-part eye-opening expose on DVD reveals the malevolent Orwellian trinity converging around the world, seeking to homogenize the freedom to speak and think in order to create nations of assimilated devotees who will embrace Antichrist. And we're just getting started. This must-have collection also includes the breathtaking 2-hour documentary, The Secret Destiny of America on DVD, featuring Dr. Thomas Horn as he reveals who the God on America's Great Seal and U.S. $1 bill really is, why 72 pentagrams in the Capitol Dome are used to control the ancient cosmocrators who rule the nations, the coming incarnation of Antichrist, and much, much more. But that's not all. For a very limited time, you'll also receive the complete Rise 2021 Defender Virtual Conference box set on DVD. This 6-disc collection is jam-packed with over 26 hours of mind-boggling revelations from world-renowned Bible teachers, archaeologists, and ancient language scholars on the prophetic events unfolding all around the world right now. Featuring unforgettable presentations from Dr. Thomas Horn, Dr. Judd Burton, Bishop Ron Webb, Dr. Aaron Judkins, Pastor Mark Biltz, Colonel David Giammona, Dr. Ken Johnson, and so many more. Plus, for the first time ever, free the full-length movie Belly of the Beast, the ancient mystery that holds the secret of Antichrist's resurrection and return, on DVD, absolutely free. Sold separately, these items hold a shocking retail value of over $245. Yours now for a donation of only $35 plus shipping and handling while supplies last. So don't miss Skywatch TV's biggest giveaway of the summer, the Zeitgeist Summer Exclusive, available now at skywatchtvstore.com. Order now or call 1-844-750-4985.
Welcome back to Unraveling Revelation from Skywatch TV. I'm Derek Gilbert.
I am Sharon Gilbert. We've got our tea here. Of course, we're recording 2 programs at once, so that's why we're in the same clothes and with the same tea. In case
secrets.
you're wondering, yes, episode 101 and 102, same clothes. We want to remind you that we would love for you to join us in Israel in March of 2022. The October 2021 tour has been changed to March of next year. If you are watching this in the future, welcome to the past. We appreciate that you're watching all of the archives. You can always go to skywatchinisrael.com, and anytime we're going to Israel, all the details will be there. So if you're watching this in 2024 and you look, we'd love to have you then too.
Absolutely. skywatchinisrael.com. Well, let's read the next couple of verses because that kind of has a bearing on the question that I posed before the break.
Does.
Verse 7 of Revelation 12. Now war arose in heaven, Michael and his angels fighting against the dragon. And the dragon and his angels fought back, but he was defeated, and there was no longer any place for them in heaven. And the great dragon was thrown down, that ancient serpent who is called the devil and Satan, the deceiver of the whole world. He was thrown down to the earth, and his angels were thrown down with him. So, did that happen in the past? Because Jesus said, I saw, past tense, Satan fall from heaven like lightning?
Well, think about it this way. When Jesus when he volunteered to die for you and me, for all of your family, when he chose to leave heaven, he left a space, his throne, which is outside of time. That's why he's called I Am. He is always in the present tense.
Mm-hmm.
When he left and became a human being, he voluntarily took on our human limitations, in that he was now within a time stream. So he could say, now, he was fully God and fully human. That fully human part is very important, because otherwise he could not have lived a sinless life in my place.
Right.
He had to be fully human. So once he's in this time stream, he could look back as a human to what happened at the throne when he saw everything, anytime, happening at once. So he would have seen it previously.
And
That's what omniscient means.
Yeah, he's
and
everywhere
omnipresent.
And every when.
Yes.
The significance of this is that this is in Luke 10, verse 18, and this is right after the 70 or the 72 disciples he sent out return back.
That's huge.
That is huge, because the number 70 or 72, numerologically speaking, means the same thing symbolically in the ancient Near East. It means all of them. And this happened right after Jesus went up Mount Hermon with Peter, James, and John and was transfigured. Mount Hermon, of course, was the mount of assembly of the Canaanite creator god El, and Jesus there essentially sent a flare into the spirit realm, announcing his divinity, and then came down to Jerusalem and was on his mission to be crucified.
El, who had 70 sons.
Right, and those 70 representing all of the gods of the nations.
And I would say those 70 sons just happened to be the 70 who were put in charge after the flood.
Deuteronomy 32, verse 8. Yes, when God divided the nations, he numbered them according to the number of the sons of God. In Genesis 10, Table of Nations, there are 70. Again, it represents all of them.
They weren't El's real sons.
No.
They were lying even then. Can you imagine that?
Yes, exactly. And there are texts from an ancient northern Syrian city called Emar, where Dagon, who was just El by a different name, also had 70 sons, representing the gods of everybody else. Except when God numbered the nations, he reserved Israel for his allotted heritage, his portion. So when Jesus came down the mountain, he sent out the 70, said, my 70 are better than your 70. They came back, and that's when Jesus said, yes, I saw Satan fall from heaven like lightning.
Here's an interesting little sideline that is connected to all of this. You have written about Elijah's encounter with the priests of Baal and on Mount Carmel, and how he came up against an entity, Melkart.
Right.
That's believed to be the Baal, the Lord of that mountain.
Yeah. And the connection to Mount Hermon.
Yes. But also to another name for Melkart, which is Heracles.
Yes.
Heracles was given tasks. He had to fulfill a whole bunch of
His
impossible
the
deals.
labors, the legendary journeys, or whatever.
One of them was to take the golden apples away from the little garden where they were being protected by a dragon.
Right.
Really close to Atlas, who was holding up the sky.
Right.
He was, because he fought on the wrong side. Okay, you're not going to go to the bad place, but you can stay here as long as you hold up the sky. Well, there was a dragon there that is a legendary dragon guarding apples. Now, isn't that interesting? So Heracles, Melkart, had to go in and trick Atlas into letting him. So Atlas, I'll tell you what, I'll hold up the sky, and if you'll just grab those apples for me. Honestly, Atlas thought, great, he's going to hold up the sky, I'll take the apples and run away. But no, it didn't work out that way. Heracles actually won and got the apples and defeated the dragon. So he was another one of those chaos comp figures by defeating a dragon. But this idea of an apple tree, it takes us back to Eden, and this idea of a dragon being there. So I think it's really interesting that once again we're seeing a dragon pictured and a woman involved and this child of promise from Genesis 3. And the fallen realm going, no, we won't be doing that. But it's connected to the future by a verse here. And the woman fled into the wilderness where she has a place prepared by God in which she is to be nourished for 1,260 days. There are a lot of people who believe that place of refuge is Petra.
Yes, and there are some Old Testament verses that support that when he comes marching forth from
Timon.
Yes, Habakkuk 3, we see that, and there's also a reference to Basra, and I don't have that up in front of me, but we'll have to get into that at some point.
Yes, well, Petra we've been there a couple of times, and it is uniquely set up to provide water. You wouldn't think so, because it's a very arid place, but the design of the place with cisterns and little channels that take every drop that comes down and channels all of it to the cisterns. It would have food because the Lord will provide food, even if it's manna and quails out of nowhere. He has done that before, and he did it right there.
It was very green back in the day. It has been very green in the past, and it will be again if that is where God chooses to give refuge to his remnant.
And there are also rocks there that just with the slightest push would just close the gates. And those rocks are after the small seek. Right. When you're in the main valley or canyon, if we walk through to get down into the main part of Petra. Let's keep reading, and we'll explain why I just brought up the small seek.
Verse 10 now. And I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, now the salvation and the power and the kingdom of our God and the authority of his Christ have come, for the accusers of our brothers, or brothers and sisters, has been thrown down, who accuses them day and night before our God. And they have conquered him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony, for they loved not their lives even unto death. Therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them.
Yes.
Yeah, who might that be? But woe to you, O earth and sea, for the devil has come down to you in great wrath, because he knows that his time is short. And when the dragon saw that he had been thrown down to the earth, he pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child. But the woman was given the 2 wings of the great eagle, so that she might fly from the serpent into the wilderness to the place where she is to be nourished for a time and times and half a time.
Obviously, we had 1,260 days, and now it's 3.5
years. Yes. The serpent poured water like a river out of his mouth after the woman to sweep her away with a flood.
Okay, that takes us to the small seek.
Yeah, but even the regular seek.
That's true.
When they've had some flooding there at Petra. When you just do a search on the internet, flood Petra, and you'll see the water just gushing out of that entrance.
There are seasons where it does rain, and it doesn't take much rain.
No, there's no place for water to soak into the soil in Jordan, and when it rains, even just a little bit, they say basically if there's water or if there's rain forecast anywhere within about 30 or 35 miles of Petra, don't go into the small seek, which is not the main pathway into the city. You can take it. It's a rough you need to be in kind of a really good shape,
It's
a good
not,
hiker.
you and I wouldn't take it.
No, but don't go in there because the water comes rushing through there. It was used by the Nabateans 2,000 years ago to divert floods away from the city.
Yes.
And so if they get rain anywhere nearby, there's a chance that that could become a life-threatening situation for people caught in the small sea.
So the serpent tries to kill them.
Right.
With a flood. And there are those who might look at this and think, how on earth could you have a flood so big that it would consume an entire remnant fleeing from Jerusalem? Well, it can happen in Petra.
Yeah.
But the Lord won't allow it.
The Lord won't allow it, as we see in verse 16. But the earth came to the help of the woman, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed the river that the dragon had poured from its mouth. Then the dragon became furious with the woman.
That's a seismically active region.
Yeah, it is. It's right on the Dead Sea Transform, the Jordan Rift Valley, essentially.
Yes, you and I have
earthquakes.
looked into that Rift Valley a lot.
It's overdue for a major quake.
Major quake, and that Rift Valley has a lot of spiritual, supernatural, woo-woo, as L.A. Marzulli would put it, sort of events that have taken place. UFOs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, almost all of the spiritually significant encounters in the supernatural encounters in the Bible occur close to that
it's
Jordan
like
River
the
Valley.
fallen realm draw power from that rift.
Yeah. I mean, why Mount Hermon? As we mentioned, it's not even one of the 100 tallest mountains on the planet, and yet it's right there on that rift. Then the dragon became furious with the woman and went off to make war on the rest of her offspring, which has been ongoing for the last 2,000 years, on those who keep the commandments of God and hold the testimony of Jesus. And he stood on the shore, or on the sand, rather, of the sea.
Oh, that is so interesting, because that final sentence.
Yes.
Again, there were no chapter breaks, but there are many who believe that final sentence belongs in the next chapter.
Yeah, and connects to Revelation 13.
So it's not John standing on the sand of the sea. It's someone else. This is fascinating because we're about to get into a scene, especially if this really is Satan standing on the sand of the sea. It's like he's a magician. And he's about to raise something up.
Summoning something from
I've failed with the water.
Yeah.
I've failed. They're protected in Petra now. I am going to bring chaos to this earth.
Exactly. The sea in the Old Testament represents chaos, and that is where we will begin next week as we start with Revelation 13 and the beast emerging from the sea. Yeah. Kind of an odd description of a dragon, but if you understand Mesopotamian imagery, as John's readers would have, they would have known this is exactly what a dragon looked like back in the day. So, fascinating. And, not enough time to get into all the stuff we wanted to get into, but that's
always
the Bible
that
for
way.
You. Yeah.
We'll have to go to episode 103.
So next week, another dragon enters the picture, and we thank you for watching. This is Unraveling Revelation from Skywatch TV.
Unraveling Revelation is part of Skywatch TV, a viewer-supported ministry. To learn more about Skywatch TV and the work of our sister ministry, Whispering Ponies Ranch, please visit our website, skywatchtv.com. And please join us for our weekly study of the Bible, verse by verse in chronological order, online at gilberthouse.org.